Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. So today you are here for the Working Smarter, Not Harder. Think about innovation pathways and different ways to use Google Sheets and other online tools to support your pathway programming. As always, we are recording these sessions. And so to let you know, we also have the opportunity for some live transcription. And so you should see in the top of your screen, it should typically be in the top left-hand corner on your Zoom screen, though they've updated a few times, it might not be there, but you should see a red live button where you're able to click that drop-down option and open up another window in your browser to see the live transcription if you so choose. We'll also have that transcript available to post-webinar to share when we share the recording as well. Here's our team. I think as I was looking at the registration list, there are many familiar names, and I don't think there are anyone who are new to the network, but in case you are, good afternoon. I am Callie Cornell. I am with the Center for Collaborative Education, and I'm joined by Jennifer Gwatkin, our partner at the Massachusetts Department of Education, and our team here, Don Shearer-Corin, Allison Plez, and our colleague Laura Tota, who's not with us currently. She's on maternity leave, but part of the team will be joining us later in the spring. For those who are new, CCE is a Boston-based organization that partners with school districts and communities to support greater educational success for students. And we are partnering with DESE to support innovation pathways, both those who are in the pipeline for designation, as well as those who are already designees and supporting the development and continuous improvement of pathway programs through things like today's webinar, program spotlights, workshops, PLCs, and a whole host of other opportunities. So today's goals are threefold. So the first is really to sort of get into the nitty-gritty and learn about different tools and online strategies to maximize how you support your pathway programs, how you think about development and growth and improvement over time. We're lucky enough to have a few of Innovation Pathway Network colleagues with us to share their particular strategies and concrete tools that they use and sort of get a window into how they use them to manage and support their programs. And then, as always, as a goal for us is to build connections across the network. So we'll have some time after hearing from some of our colleagues who will present to get you all talking with one another about your strategies and tools that you use to add to the conversation. And so with those goals in mind, here's our agenda. We'll have a quick few minutes of opening introductory pieces. We'll have some time talking about both program management tools and some progress monitoring or data reporting tools. We'll give you a time to share your own tips and tricks with the group, and then we'll close. That will bring us to the end of the hour today. So we always start with connections activities, and our first one today, or our connection activity today, is really thinking about how you all support your programs. And so our question for you is sort of what hack have you sort of developed or do you use to help support your Innovation Pathways programs? We're going to ask you to put this in the chat, but don't push enter yet. We're going to try a new technique called the waterfall technique. And so what this is, we'll give everyone a minute to think about this and to respond. And then all at once, we're all going to hit enter. So you'll see this waterfall effect of everyone's responses. You can save the chat and we will save the chat afterwards. If you don't get to look through all of the responses, you'll see them afterwards, and we'll make those available to you. But want to get a record of everyone's sort of hacks and how you're thinking about supporting your program that works for you all. So we'll give you a minute, think about this question, type your answer in the chat, but don't hit enter just yet. All right, if you haven't already, we'll ask that you finish typing up your answer in the chat. And then I'll give a 3, 2, 1 countdown and we'll all hit enter all at the same time. Are we ready? I'm looking quickly through to see if I can see head nods. I see a few. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Thanks everyone for sharing. So I see Google Forms, which is exciting. More Google Forms and Google Sheets. We'll talk more about this today. Community partners, about supports from community partners, advisory boards, going directly to students and inviting them to help support. Love that. So thanks for sharing, and we'll make sure to capture these and have them available afterwards as well, so you can go back and take a look at those. So without further ado, we'll jump right in. So today we have two colleagues from the network, Molly McLaughlin from Northampton, who is the Digital Literacy and Computer Science Director. And so she'll share a little bit about some tools and tips and tricks that she's using. And we'll also hear from Wes Carter, who's the Program Director in West Springfield, Program Director for Innovation Pathways, Early College and Work-Based Learning. And so I'm going to turn it over to Molly to walk us through. Molly, I know you have some slides and you also want to screen share, so just give me a verbal cue for whatever you need.
All right, hi folks. Callie, if you can just flip to the next slide. Today, like Callie said, I'm coming from Northampton Public Schools, and we have been one of the early designated innovation pathways. So we've been kind of working this and tweaking it and changing it as we've gone through the years. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about is when it comes to working smarter, a lot of you already mentioned Google Forms. And so I wanted to share a little bit of the way that we've used Google Forms as a recruitment tool. On the slide deck, you'll see I gave you kind of like an example, which you can absolutely just take, copy, and work for your particular platform or your program. But what we basically do is we put this on our website, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Oh, interesting. I see. It says I can't until, all right, hang on one second. There we go. And what you can see here is this is like our example where we basically give an explanation of it. We right now haven't gotten, we flirt the edge right now of having too many students, but we did initially say, look, we'll take all of the students and then we'll do a lottery if we reach a certain percentage or number. But you can see we just do some generic questions like what school do you attend? Because we focus on recruiting both in the middle school as well as in the high school at a sophomore level. And so we have students that are coming from different schools, different middle schools that we maybe weren't able to reach at our own local middle school. So that's why we kind of we clarify, like, where are you coming from? So we know if we need to follow up with you, what location we would find you in. And similarly, that kind of is how we've natured some of these questions. We also created, just so students can have an understanding, like here's a little video chat where students can actually listen to us talk about the program. So it's not super long, and then we visually break it down like, look, this is what's required. So that if a student heard it or stumbled upon it on our website, they have a couple ways to like that we're reiterating, like, do you really know what this is about? Do you want more information? So on and so forth. And that's when we start to get more from them, personal information. Do you need more? Do you want to join? Do you not have any interest anymore after watching it? So we ask for contact information, which ways students like to be communicated with, and so on and so forth. All of this is found on our webpage where we're talking about the IT Pathways program. So we put it there. We also blast it out in emails, and we blast it out to teachers who have newsletters and when we're doing recruiting. But what we get with this is our actual one, is it takes all that data and consolidates it, obviously, for those who have used Google Forms in a nice visual manner. So you can see here, even on this, the majority of the students who have answered our form are coming from the middle school or coming from an 8th grade class level. So when we go and we do recruitment events at the middle school, we give them this on a little card, and we give it to them we post it in many other places where they can directly tag this, and then we end up pooling this information and circling back to those students. I will say a lot of times I'll actually go and call them, and I will use that information, like, which way do you like to be contacted? A lot of our students don't use email. So I recognize, well, then that's not going to be an effective way for me to talk to them. If there's somebody that I found through individually talking to, then it's easier for me to feel the confidence that they're going to actually respond to the email because they might know my name. So there are just different ways that we kind of look at recruitment, but this makes it so that it sticks all of the students' information in one spot. So if we go back here, you can, like I said, you can see here, we kind of have all the website stuff. It gives you a sample that you guys are welcome to take, use it for recruitment. And then, like I said, you can keep it, tag it, separate the data in the spreadsheet if you want to look at, hey, over the years, maybe in 2020, you were recruiting most people from 8th grade, but in 2021, you see a major surge when you went to 9th grade. We use it at intro nights where we have ninth grade students coming in to see if they're, or like early students or orientation nights. We use it in a lot of different places. So that's one of the things, that's a tool that we found has been really helpful with recruitment events. We've made like little bit.ly links to that so that we can hand it out at various, we have like parent nights, and we have these like little spotlight nights where parents and guardians will walk around like little booths where we have like sports, and we have clubs, and we have like science and English departments. We have our innovation pathway department too. Nothing like passing out a little bit.ly and a sticker, to bring them in. Students really like the stickers. So that's one way we use the tools to make it easier for us to keep track of things. It also makes it so then when you're working with other spreadsheets, you can copy paste, you can use a bunch of different add-ons to spreadsheets that can pull data and dump them in different spots. All of these things, I'm giving you a very simplified definition of these, but by all means, feel free to reach out to me. As Kelly mentioned, I am one of the ambassadors, so you can go to the ambassador page to get my email, and I would be happy to dig down and really work on developing one that works for you if this version isn't as in-depth as you want. The other part, as we bounce to the second slideshow, I know I'm in the slideshow view here, but just so you can see it, is another example. And this is when we are talking about staying organized. So the evolution of our program, when we got it, we had only a certain set of classes that were offered. It wasn't a lot at that time. And so what we felt we needed to keep track of is we have students entering both as freshmen and as sophomores, and we need to see where it is that they are meeting their requirements. So again, because they need to have their technical classes in school, they need to have their internship credits and so on and so forth. We began listing all of the classes that we offer or had offered, because some of them for older students, we maybe have evolved and changed. And then we list where it is that they take it. So you can see here, I gave you an example to just say, look, in our building, here's the classes that they could take. They're color coded based for us on whether they meet a college or a college level class. And then the other ones are more like that. That's sort of like internship is our code, like orange is internship. And then, green is college level, so on and so forth. Blue is more of the traditional class that the kids need to take just for in their expertise area. Then we list the students' names. You can also see here, I have notes. Like this is kind of relevant because I copied this over from our actual data, which I'll show you. But in here, it's like I work really closely with my colleague, Misha Began, who you might have met at another webinar. But this helps us keep track of like, hey, where did this student find out about this program? So then again, we can go back and use that data later. So was it that they came to a recruitment event? Did they directly contact me? If they worked with Misha, then I want to know to go follow up with Misha. You can see here they were referred. That was by a guidance counselor. So we kind of keep track of that. We also, I'm going to pull in the actual data. I covered the students' names on you guys, but you can see here, we also color code based on the year that they are in school. So if in this case, in the example, I have it all blue or all yellow, but like the next cohort, our current sophomores are blue and our seniors are green. So we can just consult this at any given time. And then we make the students fill out like sheets that show us like what they took when, and make them try and keep track of this as well. But then we can go into their schedules and say, oh, you know what? They took tech management as a sophomore. Great. They took this. Okay, this student is on track right now. Or we might say when it is that they anticipate taking them. In this case, you can see like we have students who are taking this course spring 2022. So you kind of make your own little legend, if you will, or coding system to utilize this. If you're working with a team, just make sure your whole team knows about what it is. But I will say this has been hugely helpful to just have one landing page. You can see on our actual one, let me see if I can pull this up so I can even see it. We have a bunch of tabs across the bottom where like, we need the state reporting code. So, we have the students in those. We have them broken down by their various actual graduation years. The end result, though, is by using the spreadsheet, and again, I come from an art education background, it helps me visually to separate everything out. It just makes it easier for you to keep track of and maintain organizing where it is that the students are and what they need to take in the future. again, this is something that spreadsheets have all these fantastic add-ons that like you could geek out over anytime, where it's like, ooh, if you put something here, put it over here. You can do all of those things. It depends on how complex or how much you need to get done. But this tool has definitely been super helpful for us organizing. It also comes in handy when your superintendent's like, hey, how many students do you have in your freshman class? Well, you can just go directly to your spreadsheet and count them up. You're not looking through folders that say, which kid individually. Just one additional tool to just quickly glance at it, count it, and you know where you got them, where they are in the pathway, and how they're doing. So those were the two tools that I wanted to really emphasize when it comes to organizing and the program recruitment side of things. But like I said, I'm going to stick around for the Q&A too. And by all means, check out the webpage where the ambassadors are listed. So that way, if you want to specifically talk to me, we can look at your program and design things and maybe work with some of those spreadsheet add-ons to help with some of these organizational things. Thank you.
Molly, thank you so much. We have a little bit of time. We're doing good on time today. And so I wonder if anyone has any specific questions for Molly. You can either put them in the chat or you can come off mute and ask. And so we'll give folks a moment if you have any follow-up questions.
And Callie, I actually can also show, when I mentioned like what I said with the students, if I can find it easily, I'll show you all kind of the other tool we use that we hand to students that might be helpful for you.
Yeah, that would be great. As you're pulling that up, I'm curious about, student information systems often have a lot of this data as well. And I'm curious about sort of how you think about the cost or benefit or pros and cons of using Google Sheets in this way versus the reports that your student information can pull together.
Sure. I think the difference with student information is that the student information system does generate when I need to start granularly doing things. Because again, I'm from IT, I know that there's never Excel and Google Sheets is never going away. My student information system likely can change at any given point in time. So and I also just feel like it's not as user-friendly for my colleagues necessarily. So if I may master the art of running spreadsheet or running sheets using, in our case, we're using Aspen, sure, that's great. But to walk somebody else through it versus walking them through something that's more universally used, I find is why I mostly gravitate towards Google.
Yeah, really helpful to hear rationale there. Another follow-up question I have is around, so at one point you sort of mentioned, like, do you use your tracker spreadsheet to figure out where students are and to communicate with students about on track, off track? I'm curious about like who monitors that spreadsheet regularly and sort of who takes responsibility or how you split up responsibility for communicating with students and other staff members about what the information is telling you.
Great question. So I would say we're pretty much a two-person on the like administrative side of things, myself and Misha. So we're the ones who are really digging into that content. The next in line is mostly with the guidance department. And so that's where we go to, well, more Misha does. She goes to weekly meetings with guidance, and then we together schedule time before schedule season to go through with everybody. And I'll show you what I mean. Earlier, I was mentioning this particular sheet. So this is what we have the students fill out, where it's like, listen, we do this every, we're doing this at our like recruitment events, and then we make them do this over and over and over again. So they get sick of it because they're like, I did this last year, but it's like, it doesn't matter. We want them to feel like that ownership of understanding that this is a pathway. It's not like you do this 1 year. This is, you have 4 years to figure this out. It's not as spontaneous, oh, I decided to be in the pathway and I'm going to cram it all in. Our particular school works on a 4-block period. So it's not as simple as maybe an 8-block to fit everything in. So we make them fill this out. And our internships happen to mostly be in the summer, with the exception of one that is this tech management. But you can see it's like, look, here's what you get. Pick 2 of these, pick 1 of these. And then it's like, okay, you have these things. And we make them put them in. And even like every year, so that they have a log of this where it's like, you did this internship, you did this summer, these summer hours, because that way we feel they're taking a little ownership on seeing in the future, but also they recognize what they can take and how they're pacing themselves through this pathway. And we do have students, don't get me wrong, we do have students that forget requirements, and we have to do some very creative workarounds every now and again. So for instance, one of our things that we have, again, with that 4-block period, is we have a learning strategies class that a lot of students need for educational services. And so because of that, we make some creative solutions where in my capstone this year, I have 2 students who aren't directly sitting in my class, but I'm working with them, where we have myself and Misha, who work very closely with the Google Classroom and folders that the students have to stop by at some point, and we have to be on top of our communication to make sure that the students are still getting the curriculum that they need. And then I'm doing recordings and things like that. So I would say the tracking is majority of the time handled by Misha and I. And then, you know, the teachers will do some recruitment, like they'll definitely pass students off to us. And then guidance department is very much, they know who the people are in our pathway, and then they really rely on us to help make sure that they're on target.
Great. Thanks so much, Molly. And we got a shout out from Chris. Love that ownership sheet, that they take responsibility for that. I'm gonna pause for a moment. I asked for questions and said you can put it in the chat or come off mute, and then we didn't give people opportunity to come off mute because we jumped right into some questions. So I'll pause for a moment, see if there are any questions for Molly at this time. All right. I was told in a previous webinar I didn't have great wait time, so I'm trying to work on my wait time for responses in a virtual space. But hearing none, we'll move on. And of course, Molly will be here for the remainder of the webinar. And as she said, happy to reach out to her afterwards if you have follow-up questions. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Wes to share a little bit about some tools that he's using.
All right, thank you, Callie. Also, Molly, good job. That was really informational and awesome for everyone to hear. So I'm going to be sharing some similar information, but taking what Molly said, trying to differentiate it a little bit so you're not getting the same presentation twice. And then what we're going to do is just do a quick example, just so that everyone can actually see it in process, and you know, it won't take too much time. So that's what you're seeing in the chat is the link just to participate in the little hands-on example. Yeah, the West Springfield IP Google form example. All right, so I'm going to share now, and then you're not going to see me, you'll just see the screen, hopefully. I don't want to scare you. All right, so let's see. So just at this time. All right. And just let me know if you see MIFA Pathway.
We do.
All right, perfect. All right, so we have this huge initiative right now pushing MIFA Pathway down to the middle school. It's a fantastic opportunity for myself, but also school counselors, administration, to really gauge where, you know, these students are looking academically, career focused. But like I said, it's a fantastic tool. So what I'm going to do is just show you, you know, at the end of the MIFA Pathway intro, which is where they created their account as 8th graders. They did some career exploration. We talked about the Innovation Pathways program, various dual enrollment early college options. Students received this right here. So as you can see, the responses were at 214. So it's a substantial amount of the incoming 9th graders. You know, as Molly mentioned, I'm not going to beat the dead horse. You can ask any questions you want. And, you know, I highly recommend trying to dig as deep as you can so that we're really trying to create those 4-year plans, you know, when I'm looking at these specific 8th graders. So as you can see, I asked them, you know, career goals, you know, 2 or 3 possible options just so I can see where they're starting. And then the next thing I asked them is, how will you reach those career goals? So I'm trying to get them to think of, well, if I need to go to college, maybe it would be better if I start taking early college courses, or should I be part of an academic program that will get me where I want to go sooner? So basically that's what this was all about. So I just wanted to show you, you know, basically how simple it is to just, you know, to track some information right here. I plugged our IP program. And then also I let them identify themselves as CTEC if possible. So like I said, the earlier we find out find out about these students, the better, the quicker we can make quality 4-year plans and ultimately help, the students, the teachers, the schools, the administrators, everyone's benefiting. So, as you see, you can, these are the responses from all of the 8th graders. It's a nice way to collect all the information all together. How will you reach, your career goals? Let's see what they said. How will you reach your goals? I don't know. So that's good. Good opportunity, right? So then some of them, 4 years of college, you can actually figure out, okay, this would probably be, an IP student. So what we do is we go over to the responses, right? We check out, we click the spreadsheet button. You can actually take this information. So for instance, if we have a school counselor who has all of the students that are A through say C, we can get everybody A through C. We have the cutoff point, right? We can just copy this information. Basically through the spreadsheet, you can create an additional sheet down low, and then you can share that information on the top right. You can share that with the school counselors. So, ultimately, it's a way that you collaborate, share files. This can be anything from registering for early college courses. What we do with Springfield Technical Community College is we basically have all the students complete like an interest form, and then anyone on that interest form then gets the application to submit, and then we can actually edit their courses. Say the early college course that they wanted to take fills up, we can go into the spreadsheet that is shared with Springfield Tech, and we can actually make these adjustments. So it's more of like a fluid, literally collaboration step rather than the old school traditional method of submitting a College Now application. It gets, they don't get into that course and we never hear back. It's just like, oh, it was missed, it was in the pile. But this way, it centralizes all the data for multiple organizations, and, it allows for some efficiency. And if anyone has any questions, please reach out. I apologize that it didn't work to show you what I wanted to do with the spreadsheet. I think it was too much. But I can definitely, meet with anyone who's interested in any of that for sure. The last thing I wanted to do was just have people try out the just the form that you received in the chat, and I'm just going to show you kind of how it works. So you guys should have the link, and I'm going to share. I'm hoping not to talk too much so you can see it populate one after another, and then we can actually just see in real time what it would look like if you are a coordinator and you're sending these out, just so that there's you guys can ask any questions you have. And the idea of this is to really treat yourself as if you were a Westside student, looking at the different opportunities. Again, this is just to kind of create one so that everyone can just see it all in full circle. You don't have to really tell me your career goals. I'm sure you're going to do great. But just to kind of show you how we can organize it and then help, identify students that are under-repped, and kind of pull them out of the mainstream and really create those individualized plans. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe like 2 more minutes, and then we'll just, whatever the responses are, I'll just kind of show you what we could do with it.
Yeah, that sounds great. And while folks are finishing their responses and we're waiting for those to come in, I'm wondering, Wes, if you could, and maybe Molly, you could talk to this too, but I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how these forms and the information you collect in this way help either connect to or help inform MyCap for students, either the processes or the activities that students are do, like what connections you all make, whether explicit, like making those connections with students, or connections you all make as you're planning.
Yeah, so, on the spreadsheet I was trying to show you, it basically, I can identify students who are looking to go Chapter 74. So this is something that if we can identify those students right off the bat that are, hey, I want to do hands-on, I really want to go into, advanced manufacturing to be a CNC machinist, let's get them off the table so that we can provide high quality pathways to all the other students. So what we're looking at doing is more or less kind of like an all-in. That's kind of what the idea is, so that every student at our school is part of, a high quality pathway. So if it's a student who really doesn't have any idea, the idea may be to put them into like the business pathway and get them into intro to business, or marketing, just to see where we are. And then no matter what, there's so many benefits to the program. They can definitely benefit regardless if they choose to pursue that or not.
Awesome. And I wonder, we'll wait for a couple more responses coming in, but Molly, anything to add on that one?
Well, so we don't use this, like we use Google Forms I'll show you kind of another example. But later on I will, because I realize we don't dual share, but we do something like this using Google Forms, a similar thing, where it's again, just collecting that information. And so as I mentioned, we do have individual files for students. So like one of the things we do is around like careers, what ones you know about, what jobs interest you, you want to go into college directly, that kind of stuff. And so because of, for our MyCap, we use Naviance, we keep kind of like this portfolio going where, look, we want to make sure you get these career experiences. So we take that information and then direct, like even, for example, yesterday, we started a new cohort or a new class where we asked them like, what are some interest areas? And so we're gearing our speakers that we bring in to the areas that the students are interested. And so then they can keep track of, yep, they've got to have some experience there. We also do ones where we have them research careers and see what it costs, see what they need to get into them. And those all kind of go into this folder and then into, their experiences with MyCap, Naviance in our case, to just keep track of, again, similar to you need to take these certain courses, career exposure and like soft skills and all of that have to be built in too. We just don't track them on that same sheet. We know they're happening like in tech management or in one of those classes, and then we track them and keep in a different kind of area, but we still use Google Forms for some of that.
Super helpful. And so Wes, it looks like we have a few responses now, so I'll turn back over to you.
Yeah. So and again, I know people are probably like, hey, I'm good with this, but I just want to make sure you guys know where to click if you do choose to use these. Again, I just want to make sure we're not just explaining something and we're not explaining how to do it. So here it is. You guys saw it. You had an opportunity to sign up for a program you're interested in, identify maybe if you're underrepped, and then looking at the benefits, determining your career goals. Cool. So let's check out the responses. You simply just click responses. Here's everything all grouped together for you. All right. We have the little pie graphs, or then we have some charts. All right. Awesome. This is where you're going to want to. This is how you create the spreadsheet. It's right here. It's the little icon on the top right. You can just click that. The first time you create one, you're going to just click creating a new spreadsheet, and it's the name. You can edit it if you want, but this is the one I want. Create.
And so I want to give folks a chance to follow up and ask a few questions, Wes. And so I'll invite folks to put questions in the chat or to unmute and share their questions aloud.
For sure. So I did see one from Jennifer asking, that was C-Tech on the forum, correct? Yes. So when I'm doing MIFA pathways, I'm plugging IP really hard, but I'm also allowing students to identify C-Tech, right? I want to make sure, I'm differentiating the differences between the programs. So that's what's really neat about my position. I kind of oversee all of the different initiatives. So I'm able to explain that, like Chapter 74 is very like occupationally focused, whereas the IP program is more like you're learning about the industry and you're not really necessarily trying to get a job right after high school. That's kind of what I try to, differentiate. But then, in those exit tickets, students are able to voice their opinions, about, how they feel, or I want to work with my hands. I don't see myself as a traditional college student. And also pushing that, hey, 70% of all jobs that are good jobs are going to require some form of education, not all bachelor's degrees. So they get that whole spiel.
Excellent. I don't see any additional questions in the chat, but also that Wes is another peer ambassador and his information is on the website. And so Jennifer shared a link earlier in the webinar in the chat around the link to the peer ambassador page, but you can click there and get Wes's information as well to reach out with additional questions. And so I'm going to also share my screen and cross my fingers for no tech difficulties. But we want to get a chance to hear from each of you and give you a chance to share your own tips and tricks. And so a lot of what we've shared so far been centered around Google Sheets, which is great. There are like infinite number of things you can do with Google Sheets and Google Forms, but we want to also give you a chance to say, like, what are some of the things that are happening for you? Maybe some folks can expand on the things that they shared at the beginning of the webinar around some hacks that they have that work for them. And so we're going to move for just a couple of minutes into some breakout rooms just so that we can give everyone a chance to share. And so we'll have about 10 minutes. And so we'd love to, we have these two questions for you as we head into those small rooms. And the first is around like building off of what you heard both from the connections activity, from sharing your hacks, and from what you heard from both Molly and Wes. What additional tools or strategies are you using to help manage your programs? And then sort of the second question here is sort of like, based on what you heard today, is there anything you heard that you might integrate into your own practice and to pick up into part of your routines? And so we'll open the breakout rooms. You'll be put in random rooms for just a few minutes, and then we'll come back and give you a chance to share. We'll maybe do a few report outs for the whole group on things that really stood out to you in your small group. So we'll invite you to join the breakout spaces, and we'll see you back here in 10 minutes. So we hope that was helpful to have a few minutes to share your own tips and tricks, talk to a few other colleagues about things that they're using. I'm wondering, we have a sort of a couple of pieces to close on, but I'm wondering before we do that, if anyone heard something from a colleague in a breakout space or something that they want to share that they just like really love around a tool that they're using or a strategy they're using that seems to make a big difference.
Hey, Cal, can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention this. I know this came up. Molly mentioned it. I just forgot to say it. If you're having issues reaching your students through the email or whatever, use a QR code. So we basically, I have this on our brochures. Put this up around guidance. They walk up to it, they take the picture. As long as your settings are correct on that Google form, they can just fill it out. Even fill it out using a non-school email. Fantastic way to kind of break that they never answer their emails thing. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, a great tip. And I think we heard from Molly about the use of the bit.ly links, Wes around QR codes and like really making it accessible. I know a lot of us sort of like live and breathe and die by our emails, but students are not using email in the way that we all were using them or use them currently. And so think about different ways to access and sort of meet them where they are and with the kind of technology that they're inclined to use. It's a great tip. So feel free, if you have anything you'd like to share, you're welcome to put it in the chat. In our last few moments, want to share a few of our upcoming events. And so we are sort of winding down to the end, or taking a look at winding down to the end of the year, and sort of can have our slate of our events up all on the same slide. So coming up within the month of March, we have 2 events. You'll hear from Wes again on March 8th with a program spotlight highlighting the engineering and advanced manufacturing programs. We have a panel of students there to talk about their experience and some of the things that are happening for them within the program. So we're excited for that and excited to welcome Wes back for the program spotlight. March 30th, we have our final workshop of the year. The final sort of title is TBD, but what we're inclined to talk about there, what we've heard from you all, is like really spending time thinking about recruitment and messaging, marketing materials, communications with families, early communication strategies with students, communicating and sort of structuring some buy-in strategies with staff. The workshop will be concentrated around those sorts of communication, marketing, and onboarding, partnership building strategies. So keep an eye out for those registrations shortly. On April 12th, we'll have a webinar that talks about both early college and innovation pathways. And for folks who are thinking about both within their school or within their district, different strategies, how you might think about you having both, and when one sort of might be better than the other, and sort of how to think about offering those opportunities all within one school or district. So we'll have Jennifer joining us for that one as well as her colleagues, Kristen Hunt, and potentially some others from the early college side. of the House and DESE to talk about those programmings together. And then finally on May 11th, we have for our new designees, we have a really solid group of new designees or sort of expected new designees this year. And so by May, they will have had notification on granted designation or not. And so we'll have you're a new designee, now what? And so really getting an opportunity to sit down and say, okay, we've done all this work for the applications, and now where do we start? And so hoping that folks are save the date for those. Registration for all of these events will be available soon. And as always, our technical assistance website is available to you. So that's where all of our resources from past events are there, the recordings and the slide decks and transcripts from those. That's where you can register for all of our upcoming events. Our peer ambassador information is there now as well. So it's sort of, we're turning into a one-stop shop, includes our Innovation Pathways Toolkit, always there for you to access from that tiny URL. In our last couple of moments, I'll ask my colleague to put a link to the survey in the chat. We do take a look at all of the survey responses for each event, so we'd like to know how today went for you. If you're not able to complete it now, it should only take you literally under 2 minutes, very, very quick, to answer just a couple of questions. If you don't have the chance or don't have the time to do it now, we ask that you open it in your browser, keep that window open so you can come back to it at some point before the end of the day today. We'd greatly appreciate it. We do look at each and every response that comes through to help shape how we're putting together our future events and the kinds of topics and activities that are most helpful for you all. And in our last moment, just a thank you for being here. We know that you are being pulled in a million directions and digging out from a snowstorm and dealing with ongoing COVID implications. And we're so grateful for you to spend an hour with us here this afternoon. So thank you. My email address as well as Jennifer's are here on the screen. You know how to get in touch with us. And we look forward to seeing you at an upcoming event soon. Thanks so much, everyone.